to this business speaker series presentation tonight, the last of the season. And we have reserved the best.
The most interesting.
And as you know, my name is Luis Michel. I'm the chair of the School of Business at Reglin University. And the series of presentation is organized on in the context of the small business centers activities. The small business center is going on a process of restructuring now, but we're still organizing this series of events. And tonight, later, an hour, I would say it's a blessing. Yeah, and Natalie, owner, operator of Boston Pizza franchises in Macomb and Panoka, to come here and speak with us. And we are honored that you can make time. The only thing we few people complain is we're less than we used to be.
Oh.
But what would it fix that? Next time. So next time we had, last time we heard that was for the Small Business Week. You remember that? And she is with us tonight. And this, I'm assuming, is not the last.
Oh, probably not.
So it's a pleasure to introduce her, but we're going to break with tradition. So how do I best introduce you?
How do you best introduce me? Oh, do you want me to introduce myself?
Nice. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So you're a business graduate.
Yeah, I'm a business graduate, yes.
You're a business owner.
I'm a business owner.
You're a business manager.
Business manager. I'm a volunteer. Life.
Yeah. So how long have you been operating the businesses in London?
Yeah, so I was fortunate actually joining the Boston Pizza home team when it very first opened. So in 2002 was when I joined the Boston Pizza home team. I had just recently graduated from university. Prior to that, I was part of the Boston Pizza Panoka team. And it was one of those things that I had spent 2.5 years working there while I was going to school. And when I left, it was like, I'm never coming back. And then I got a job in Lacombe, and I worked my way up literally from a server where I just was a recent graduate. I needed to make money. I know how to be a server, and I know I can do that. And that lasted a month, and then I moved into the management world. So I was the third manager, then I moved up to the assistant manager. I left on 2 maternity leaves, and then I had the pleasure of coming back and being invited as the general manager. So I worked as the general manager from 2007 until 2014, where I had the opportunity to buy in as a partner and become a franchisee at the Boston Pizza Panoka. Remember the store I was never going back to. So I turned the key as an owner at 6 o'clock in the morning. So there's kind of like a shift on buying Boston pizzas and doing inventory and all of that stuff before you actually start your business day. And so it was, my last day was in April of 2001 with Boston Pizza Panoka, and my first day as an owner of Boston Pizza Panoka was April 17th of 2014. So I've been there ever since as an owner. I oversee the operations in Macomb. I've spent many years volunteering on a variety of committees, whether I've done FCSS, I've done camps in Panoka, I've done lots of different things, sports teams with my kids. My kids are now at that age of 18 and 19, so it kind of opens up a little bit more freedom again for me to go back to doing things like this. Yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell in business.
And if you were to go back to school now, so
I've already hinted it.
What would be your choice?
So I always say that if I was going to go back, I would go back into accounting. So I've met a couple of professors here, so we're working on our thing. So by show of hands, how many people in the room are actually in the accounting designation for your degree? Ah, smart people. How many people in the room them are in marketing.
Oh, marketing is new.
Marketing majors? Oh, marketing is new.
Marketing is new.
So which specialties do you guys
We
have?
have four.
Four. So accounting,
Accounting,
Mhm.
management,
management,
HR,
HR.
international business.
Ah, international business also intrigues me. The problem is, I'm not much of a, I love to travel, but I don't like to work and travel. So my history of education is, I actually graduated high school in Pinoca, and I went to Red Deer College, so now it's Polytechnic, but when I was there it was Red Deer College. And I took a program because all I wanted to do was be a head chef. And I wanted to be a red seal chef in a big hotel serving banquets to the rich and famous. And from my little town in Pinoca, my mom says, you can't go to Lethbridge, it's too far. And anybody knows how many people here are greater than 400 kilometers away from home? Everybody? So I was the ability to move to Red Deer. So it was all of 36 kilometers away. So at Red Deer, they didn't have a red seal chef or a trade at that time. So the program that I took was called Hospitality and Tourism, and there were 3 majors in umbrella, and I majored in food and beverage management. And it was the closest thing I could get to being a chef at Red Deer. So I used it as a stepping stone. The first year of that program, we took front of the house management and back of the house, which is the kitchen. So I got drawn the stick of being front of the house in my first semester. And when you say sweating bullets, like, this is not what I want to do. So we opened the restaurant on opening day, and here I am in a server with my white shirt and my black apron, and I'm an order taker. And I fell in love with the people. And then the second semester I went back into the kitchen where we worked through the different positions, and I realized there's no people back here. I have nobody to talk to. So I quickly realized that was not for me. So maybe my mom was right in saying, why don't we try this instead? So when I graduated Red Deer College, I had my diploma. So I had a 2-year diploma in business, and I basically bridged into the University of Lethbridge at the time. One, because it was one of the only colleges that accepted my diploma as an accredited 2-year program, and moved to Lethbridge. And at that stage, I went into the business world like you guys are with classes. But because my focus was so on restaurant, I actually graduated with just a general degree. So I did not specialize in any one business area. I always look at my degree in the sense that I have a sheet of paper that says I'm qualified if I was going to leave the food and beverage industry. My heart is in the food and beverage industry, and I'm probably never leaving.
No, I feel that I'm sitting on the way.
Not at all, not at all. You can stay and interview.
So now tonight, I think after your presentation, we're going to make you an alumnus of Birmingham University.
Okay.
So with that, thank you very much for willingness to come and talk with us. We're listening to you.
Yeah.
Welcome to the School of Business.
Thank you for welcoming. The lie on the clock, because at the end of the day, I get where you guys have papers and exams and everything coming up, so we're not going to go over anytime. I'll try and leave lots of answers, time for question and answers. So at the end of the day, just to kind of go back into a snapshot. So I did graduate from university. When I graduated from university, I had an assistant director of food and beverage operations at a different business that ended up not being what I expected it to be. So an eye-opening world of, I'm broke, I'm a university student, and I need a quick job. I started at Boston Pizza in home. And so, like I said, I moved from serving into management very quick. Only because at that stage, I just loved the restaurant industry, and I just loved people. And so then that's kind of number one, where I started. And number two, I never left, because in this world, 20 years ago to now, as an employee, as an investor in a company, you stay where you feel welcome, where you're wanted, and where you're treated well. So if any of those elements in your future career are not being hit, my advice is run. I have been treated very, very well. I've had some unreal experiences in my 20 years at Boston Pizza. I have met the rich and famous, even though it's Boston Pizza. I have a photo with Wayne Gretzky in Nashville, who just happened to give me a hug because he liked the jersey I was wearing. When I worked as a server back in my college days, I came out of a hidden passageway at Chateau Lake Louise and ran into Brad Pitt, and his current wife at the time is Jennifer Aniston. I have had the rich and famous, and then I had the likes of everybody else in between. And the rich and famous are not who makes our career, because some of the best stories that I've ever been told are just from the people in the restaurant. So I'll give you an example, and I'm gonna leave his name out of it, but he was sitting in the restaurant one day, and it was literally, we just started talking, and he left Ontario when he was 24 years old with nothing but a backpack. And this was circa 1970, so he'd been in Lacombe for quite a few years. He jumped on a train, and he showed up in Lacombe, and he just told me his story. And at the end of it, I was so moved by his story. He said, "Can I have the bill?" And I said, no, like, dinner's on me today, because I really appreciated just getting to know you. And he said, I'm 59 years old and I've never had a meal bought for me, so thank you very much. So it ends up being these small little things of just listening to people talk and engaging in conversations that you end up with these crazy connections. And I like to say connections that lead you to places like this, where my Boston Pizza is not necessarily part of a business center or the university, but I'm privileged and honored to be invited to speak here today, so thank you very much. So at the end of the day, Elmira, yeah, perfect. I was like, Elmira or Elmira, I don't want to get it wrong. She says, what are you going to talk about? What can I call your platform? And I was like, number one, I'm not a planner, I'm a talker. So there is no PowerPoint presentation, there is no notes. And I'm just gonna basically give you kind of my life experience, and then we'll go from there. So she suggested how to become an impactful manager. And I like to think over my 22 years, I've made an impact on people's careers. And I've had lots of people come back and say, I started at Boston Pizza as a host, but I learned so much in that year or 2 years or 3 years that they were there, that they carry it on to other businesses. And so when we look at Boston Pizza, there's very few of us that actually make it a career. We call it a stopover position. So it's basically, if you look at any of your part-time positions that you've had over the years, you're there to make a paycheck and you're there to leave. But in that time frame, you still take life lessons and you can apply them to future careers and future relationships. And so for me, in a management role, that is a really big thing. So number one is connecting with people. And so I like to connect with people, one, to listen to them talk, but number two, I call everybody by name. And so some people don't understand that just between the two stores, on any given time, there's 100 employees between both stores. And so there is a fluent dynamic where the team is always changing. So one person might be there for 3 months, another person has been there for 16 years, but you still have to show that same investment. So my number one thing in being an impactful manager is just making sure that you make those personal connections, even if they seem small and insignificant at the time, strictly by calling somebody by their first name. I'm a true believer in leading by example. I never ever that I will not put rubber gloves on and do right along with you. And in the restaurant, some of those stories can be way too badly. We're not going to go into them, but just know in a restaurant world, we are every department that a corporation would have. So there's an HR department, that's me. There's a legal department, that's me. There's a payroll department, that's me. There's a marketing department, that's me. And so I have teammates that help me with that, but for the most part, it is under one umbrella in a small business. So you do wear multiple hats. I work shoulder to shoulder along with the team, but I learn to pick out people's positivities that I can then delegate things to without feeling the need to babysit them. So over my years, I have learned that I cannot do everything for everybody at all times. I need to have a team beside me. And I am only as strong as my weakest link. So if I'm not at the restaurant, I want to make sure that you guys are having a great experience. And how I do that is investing time, working shoulder to shoulder with them, giving them adequate training, advice, and guidance to make sure that they're just as invested in the guest experience as what I am. I am not afraid to, like I said, get my hands dirty. And then the other thing is just to have very clear expectations. So regardless of what role you're in, if you're training somebody, you need to make sure that you give them clear expectations so that they know how to succeed in your business. Without those clear expectations, nobody likes to not know what they're doing. That's the reality of it. So whether it's a university class where you get that core syllabus at the beginning of your semester, pay attention to that because that's what the professor is looking for, versus going to a job or a career where it's listed as this is your expectations and this is where we need to meet. And then the clear communication of having those one-on-one counseling sessions or guided sessions for team development and continuing that on. Now, I've told this story a few times, but I'm gonna tell it again. So part of my business education at the University of Lethbridge was that I took a pilot project class. So it was the very first class that it was offered, and I did not feel like I was qualified to take this course. And the professor was very, very influential on me to say, yes, you will take it. When I got off work at 3:30 in the morning and he called me at 7 o'clock in the morning and said, I signed you up, and I went, okay, I'll do it, right? I was still sound asleep. But I am so, so thankful that I was given that opportunity. And the number one thing that the very first day was he took a class like this, so there was 30 of us, and we all did a personality test. And everybody thinks they have a concept of their personality until you actually have to put it on paper. And when you put it on paper, sometimes there are certain words or triggers that actually move you from one category into another. So with the 30 students that were in the class, we did the Myers-Briggs test. So how many in the room have done that test or know what I'm talking about? So there's basically, to summarize the program for those that don't know, it basically calls you an introvert or an extrovert. And in this class, we were given working groups. So the way that the professor had it is he took 2 of the extreme introverts and put them with 2 of the extreme extroverts, and that made a group. And then he went down. So the next 2 and the next 2 and the next 2 and in the middle. So when we lined up in a group, the very far left side was the introverted side. The very far side was the extroverted side. So what happened was it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 29. And then he says to me, Natalie, keep going. And I'm like, I know I'm an extrovert. He's like, Natalie, keep going. So the whole class was basically where this table was, and I was all by myself over here. I will tell you that those 29 people all have corporate jobs and work in high-end, highly intellectual positions. This girl works with the people and spends all day, every day talking. So we all kind of ended up in the right career path, but like I said, I ended up as an extreme extrovert. So when we look at that dynamic and we apply it, Boston Pizza International has a program that they call Colors. So has anybody heard of Insights or the Colors program? It's okay if you haven't, because this is where I'm gonna make you guys all get up and move around, and you guys are gonna work with me instead of me talking. So at the Boston Pizza World, we focus on 4 colors. So I'm gonna give you the categories, and then I'm gonna pass out pages, and I'm gonna have you guys look at the words and decide which color you think each page is. So I don't mind if you guys stay sitting and you guys just wanna talk, like reverse your chairs and talk that way, but I want you to take a guess as to which color you're with, okay? So the number 1 color in a Boston Pizza World is red. And red is basically strong-minded and very focused. Next color is yellow. So yellow is going to be enthusiastic and very encouraging. Green is caring and much more relaxed. And blue is cautious and very deliberate. So I have 4 sheets, and I'm just going to pass them out, and you guys can just kind of work amongst yourselves. So if I give you guys this one, and you guys just kind of work together, and I'll pass you this one, and if you make those 3, work all of them. And you guys can just work together, and then I'll. I think you're like, you don't know.
So we're supposed to figure out which color.
Yeah, everybody has the same amount of words on their page.
Okay, we gotta figure
That's
out which
what
color.
what color do you think you? So when you think you see the answer, I'll wait until there's 4 pages scanning. Look like a.
Where is you feel that sense?
It's not red, and it's not yellow. Yeah, it's yellow. It's not. Yellow is
What is yellow? It's You're welcome.
and green. There's some yeah, it's focus. Start learning some.
All right, so then each group stand up and read the list, and then say which color you guys think you are. You got one, two.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so then tell me which color you think you are. Yeah, go for it.
Associative, decisive, forceful, purposeful, realistic, fearing, driving, will, and related.
Perfect. And what color did you guys determine you were?
Right.
You are right. 100%. So then the next group, let's go over here.
Calm, friendly, calm, loyal, patient.
And what color did you guys come up with? Yes, you are green. So the process of elimination, the group at the back, what's your list say?
Cheerful, persuasive, outgoing, hopeful, active, fun, social, optimistic. Yellow.
Yes, you guys are. And then the last group to process is, go ahead with your list.
Accurate, tactful, concise, factual, structured, cautious, diplomatic, logical, calculating, conventional, correct, exact.
And what color do you think you are?
Red.
Nope, not red. Yellow. So you guys are actually blue. So I'm gonna just very quickly stretch your legs. If you think you're a red, stand up. You would not do. If you think you're a yellow, stand up. Yeah. So I used to be a very strong fiery red, and I've crossed over into a yellow red. And if you think you're green, stand up. And then if you think you're blue, then absolutely. So the reason why we do this at Boston Pizza is because those of us that are fiery red have a slogan. And our slogan is literally be brief, be bright, and be gone. I don't want any more details. I want to know what you're doing, how you're doing it, and then carry on. For those that are yellow, involve me, pick me. I want to be part of the group. For those that are green, we call it earth green, is show me you care. Show me how you care about me, how I'm helping the team, show me that you care. And for the cool blue, it's give me the details. So for somebody who traditionally is fiery red and somebody who is blue and wants all the details, red people have to pause. And red people have to listen to the details of the blue people, because if not, red and blue don't work well together, even though the color purple is my favorite color on the planet. But we actually have to pay attention. So that's where we always say, especially working in a dynamic, there's so many people that come into the group that every single one of our employees that start at Boston Pizza takes this insight course. And then when we pull up our Boston Pizza Learning, it's gonna say, Natalie, it's fiery red. And it's going to say somebody else is green. And then that way we can learn personalities as well as how to communicate effectively with them. And so it is a fundamental part of the business to know that, because it helps with the communication. Now, when we look at, I'm gonna say fiery red, the number one slogan that I have always gone by, and this comes from 20 years ago in a personality test, is I actually align with the Nike swoosh. And the reason why is because their tagline is, just do it, just do it. Whereas somebody who's a blue doesn't necessarily care about what the problem is or the solution is, but they want all the details so that they can best handle the solution and the problem at hand. When the gentleman at the back of the room says, can I be two? Yes, you can, because I am very sunshine yellow as well. And I am very enthusiastic, and I love that bright sunshiny, the more people I am and involve me, make sure that I'm included. And that's where very earlier on in my career, I took the rein because I want to be the leader, but I don't want to be the person that's saying, this is how we do it. I want to influence you and say, come with me, we're gonna do it this way. So that's just an interesting little like personality trait that we use at Boston Pizza that I thought would be cool to bring into the business center. Only because if you guys haven't seen it before, it is kind of gives a different perspective on it. And then the last area, or I shouldn't say the last area, the middle area that I'm going to talk about is going to be developing workable skills. So I touched on this a little bit, basically saying we acknowledge at Boston Pizza that the 99% of our team is likely using it as a stopover career, a part-time job to make income and to learn skills. But our investment into them is so that they can apply skills that they've learned outside of it. So when we look at those skills, does anybody have a guess in a part-time job what skill you've learned that you can apply to a career? I wrote down 5 top ones, but go ahead. Time management is huge. Who has a date timer and a calendar and it's color coordinated and everything is in blocks? I am impressed. Almira, Nora, she knows that I'm not that way. I'm like, fly by the seat of my pants. I'm in, I'm out. No, I'm kidding. I was always in, but you know what I mean? Like, is she gonna show up? I'm here because I'm committed to it. So time management is a huge thing that you learn right from an early age, whether it's playing sports or elementary school all the way up. But when you get into university and into business, that plays into it, because without a list or without kind of breakdown, the world can get very overwhelming when you start to create lists in your head. So I am trying to become the person that makes written lists and actually crosses them off, because I realize how satisfying that is to put a line through it to say I've accomplished something. What's another one that somebody else would learn in a part-time job? Go ahead.
Accountability.
Yes.
Working with different people.
adaptability and working with different people. I use this with my daughter. So my daughter was an extreme introvert, and for somebody who's an extreme extrovert, it can be a challenge. But in her part-time job, she has had to actually come out of her shell, and all of a sudden, she's not quite as introverted as she used to be. So that is definitely a skill that you learn in a part-time job. Anybody else think of another one? I got 3 more to go. Is something that I define myself. I'm in the generation, you guys are a lot younger than me, but my kids are 18 and 19. And so if you look at your parents, they will probably align a lot with me in the sense that our generation, we're called lawnmower parents. So has anybody heard this terminology before? I was talking to a table the other day and they were shocked by it. And then once I explained it, they're like, oh, we are lawnmower parents. So you guys are a generation probably where your parents are lawnmowers. So when my kids have a problem, instead of letting them think through it, I'm a lawnmower parent. So when you're cutting grass, you cut a clean line this way and you cut a clean line this way. So as a parent, as a lawnmower, I'm going to move all the obstacles so that they don't have to problem solve. And when somebody said I was a lawnmower parent, I went, pause. I won't be a lawnmower parent anymore because it doesn't teach my kids any problem solving skills. So problem solving is something that maybe doesn't necessarily get learned in the house like it used to with us lawnmower parents, but in a place of work, you learn to problem solve very quickly because your mother isn't there to hold your hand, right? Another one is strictly just being able to make a decision. There's a lot of people that just struggle with, am I going left or am I going right? I learned to make a decision, I stay in grade 3, and I'll give you this scenario because I am not an indecisive person. I am very much, I'm going left or I'm going right, and I'm never going straight. And in grade 3, I was on a bike path on my pedal bike and the trail went left or right. And I didn't know which way I wanted to go, so I went straight into a tree and I crashed. And I have never been undecisive since then. It doesn't work that way. And the last one that's really big is conflict management. So we all run into conflicts at work, at school, at home. But we work at home in conflict resolution a lot differently than we do at work or in a place of study or professionalism. And so part of conflict resolution comes into your colors because that's your communication. It also comes into play with, there's 2 sides to every story, pause and hear out both sides and then work through it. And I have always said, we're not best friends with the people we work with. We make great friendships with the people we work with or go to school. But what we always lead with is respect and trying to be understanding. And that is a big thing when you work with a dynamic like the team at Boston Pizza. Our youngest is 14, our oldest is 78 years old. And so we have a lot of dynamics, we have a lot of culture, we have a lot that plays into our team. So we always lead with number 1, respect and understanding for that other person's situation. The last thing, again, is going to be an extra bonus point, but it was strictly with communication, or when she said adaptability, and being able to coach, right? If you think back to playing sports and you always had your best coach one year, and then it seemed like the next year, not so great of a coach. So when I just learned that I wanted to be the manager that I respected, the coach that I respected, and what traits did they bring into business, and how do I try and replicate them, but even better them? Because I want my team to say, you know what, 20 years ago I worked at Boston Pizza and it was a stopover position, but I had a great time, I learned a lot, and I was able to apply it to another position. And then the last area that I'm going to talk about with small business is I am a true believer that in any business, whether it's a corporation or whether it's a small business, and Boston Pizza is a corporation, but I view it as a small business. We are a small restaurant individually owned and operated, and we work alongside the people in our community, whether it's sports teams, clubs, and organizations. And so I am a very, very, very firm believer in community involvement and outside of the four walls of business. And so that's why I do things like this. That's why I volunteer on committees. That's why I look outside the umbrella. It's not, I used to always joke that it was to build my political platform. So anybody who knew me at 19, I was going to be the mayor of the next town I lived in. I don't want to go into any sort of politics at this stage, but I absolutely love to learn the different dynamics of the community and be involved with it at whatever level I can be. And so that is another recommendation that I look at with small business is don't be afraid to reach out on olive branches that you never thought you would have, because you will learn, number one, somebody else's story and be able to apply it to your story, whether it's helping or to be helped, and you learn amazing connections by putting yourself in those places. So that is pretty much my how to become an impactful manager. I hope that I gave some sort of insights into the business world and it wasn't just a long lecture. Thank you for participating. And then I will open it up for questions and answers and do my best to give answers. If it's something that I don't know, I will always just ask her and I will get back to you. I will find an answer out. So I will open the floor to you guys.
Start, question? Okay, Josh, over there.
I love Boston Pizza Panoka, number one, because I was living in London and driving to Panoka to work a weekend shift. So when you look at driving for 4 hours to work 2 shifts, to drive back for 4 hours to go to school. And I was big in time management, so the number one reason why I spent so much time on this was because I was 11 and he was 12, and it was love at first sight, and we've been married for 22 years now. So at the end of the day, he stayed in Panoka and I moved to Lethbridge. And it was one of those things that at that stage, we weren't talking about marriage, there was never any intention on that, but I was still I put everything into that relationship. So that's kind of the reason why we go back. And then I picked up the shift to do. The owner of the store at the time and the team that I was working with did not give me the appreciation that I felt like I deserved, driving 8 hours to help them out by working the weekend shift. So at the end of the day, I said, goodbye, I'm gonna carry on. And then when I started in Lacombe, the reason why I'm still there is because I was treated so well, I forgot.
Is there a chance that next time you are invited to come for a speaker series, could there be a chance to bring all of these different?
We can do wings. You know, I have to give you the sideline story. So Elmira at Pizza for you guys, which I greatly appreciate the support for all of this to do it. But I was actually going to bring pizza, call it a pizza party. So on my notes, it says 7 o'clock pizza party. And I said to the manager today, I need pizza to take to the students because let's be honest, not always do you have to eat before a night class and racing, and you got this test and that test, and so we all appreciate having my food, but it was gonna be a gift for me, and then it was already, yes, I will bring you.
John, did you have a question? Yeah. So my question is, it has to do with the area of service.
Yeah.
I know it's not so easy to manage people and to manage clients, but in business, there is this saying that the customer is always right. So as a manager, how do you handle someone, a client,
Yes.
who walks into Boston Pizza? One of your ladies or guys goes to serve them and they are treated rudely.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's to the extent to where your employees are not able to hold themselves. They try to fight back and then it creates scene or something.
I know. Yeah.
And as the manager, you need to listen to your employee.
Yes.
He's not just going to tell you the full story. How do you handle situations like that? Because I feel like.
Yeah, there's so many layers actually in that question. So I'll give you the short, the long, and the dirty, okay? Are you ready for this? Maybe turn off live. Is I am a true believer that the customer may not always be right, but we want to make the customer feel like they're right. So part of it is delivering that message or being able to encourage them. So one of the areas that I always say we run into is, let's say that a guest orders a large Boston Royal, and then when it comes, they realize there's onions. Well, in the menu, it says that there's onions on it, so it was no surprise, but in their head, they thought they were getting something and they didn't. So we make them feel like they're right by strictly just offering to remake it, right? We're not gonna get argumentative with them. We do have challenging guests that sometimes get into it with servers, and you're right, we do back up our front of the house team, whether it's in the lounge or the restaurant, or even a host. And part of being a consumer in any industry is they're very passionate. So some people kind of go off the rails and they can be very disrespectful. And so if it gets to a level of disrespect, number one, separate the parties, and then we hear out two sides. We will always stand behind our team because our team should never be abused or mistreated in a situation. And sometimes it's something as simple as, you know what, this server is clashing with them, but let's get a new server in there and kill them with kindness and we're good to go. On the phone, if somebody is being very disrespectful on the phone, using foul language, it's literally just, you know what, thank you very much. I just need you to take a couple of deep breaths and call me back when you can talk to me respectfully. Because I'm actually here to try and help you with the situation, but I'm not gonna help you if you're being disrespectful to me. And I view that on a couple of occasions. It's not often that it gets to that stage. And then the one that really should not be said on live, but I've used this montage in the restaurants for so many years because it is an interesting clientele, is today I'm going to work to make an asshole my friend because I will make somebody who doesn't like me come over to my side because I have turned into this sunshiny yellow where it's like, follow me this way. And sometimes it's just hearing them out and giving validations to their feelings that will convert them. Sometimes being told, take a deep breath, let's work together, then that consumer or that team member, even for that matter, realizes that they might be going off the rails. So I am a true believer that yes, the customer is not always right, but we want to make sure that they feel like they're right. Does that answer your question? Yeah, perfect.
Did I see another hand somewhere? Yes, Dr.
Well, mine is the first time I saw Boston Pizza, I thought it was a US
Absolutely.
company. And looking at what is going on, the politics
Yes.
of today,
Yes.
how is it affecting your business?
So I'm going to go to the dynamic. So how many people here, and I'm going to assume that nobody knows the history of Boston Pizza. So that is our number one question. You're an American company in Canada. And so I don't know if anybody's seen the 22-minute skit where it basically goes through like, why are you eating that? Support Canada, and why are you doing this and why are you doing that? And then he says, well, we should go to Boston Pizza, and then, or New York fries. So anything with a major city in the US in the name is probably Canadian, is what he says on this 22-minute skit. So what happened was Boston Pizza was originally started by a chef, and he was a Greek, and he resided in Edmonton, Alberta. So the very first Boston Pizza was in Edmonton. And then what happened was he then franchised it or sold it in 1982 and it became a franchise. And then it grew and then Jim and George bought it. So Jim is the one who's on Dragon's Den that everybody associates with it. So we've got a head office, but we're all individually owned and operated. And so the front cover of our menu is, we're a Canadian company that was started by a Greek sailor with a US name in our title that means nothing. And the reason why we say nothing is it's not Boston, but so when Gus started Boston Pizza, we look back at 1964. And so the story that I was always told with Boston Pizza and the story that I have told for so many years is in 1964, the Boston Bruins were a very successful hockey team. Boston had a very successful Major League Baseball team. And the number one dessert on every menu in 1964 was Boston cream pie. How many people actually know what Boston cream pie is? Because it's not something that's very popular right now. I know, right? Yeah, we do. So when Gus decided the name, pizza was the new concept. So he knew that he wanted pizza in the name, but he didn't want to call himself Successful Pizza because that makes his head look really large and conceited. So he tried to figure out a different way to call himself Successful Pizza. So Boston is actually what he used as a code word, meaning successful pizza. So Boston was successful, pizza was the concept, so there grew Boston Pizza. And now Boston Pizza, there's about 371, give or take, Boston Pizzas across Canada. It is an American chain right now, so they grew into the States about 15 years ago, and it's called Boston's Gourmet. And then they're actually really pushing the Mexican industry market right now. And down there, I have not been, but the last conference in Cancun, I unfortunately had some family things that came up and I couldn't go. But everybody says if you can get to a Boston Pizza in Mexico, they are so I do advise that, but I haven't been. So, but yes, Boston is a code word for successful. So our platform is we are a Canadian company, we are Canadian owned, and 90% of our products are all from Canada. So we are locally sourcing things like wheat from our flour to our cheese and our proteins and all of that come locally. Now, produce, like anywhere, we have a short growing season in Canada. So we can't get all of our produce locally. So what we do is we look at sourcing, and the pricing with our food companies is whether it's Mexico or the US, and that is a very dynamic market right now that is changing fast. So we are a Canadian company and we do talk about it very loud and proud. Anybody else have a question?
Got a question, except the chicken wings, they are from the US, so Josh will not have that.
No, Josh, you know, I was just told we just got a new supplier. So I will do some investigation and find out if they're a Canadian supplier, because I literally changed the chicken wing code today. So you might be in business.
With that, no other question?
Just to follow up with what Dr. Tuffer said, have you seen an increase in people coming in since politics in the US? Like, is it?
We really haven't seen an increase or a decrease, if that makes sense. Like and I'm speaking between Pinocchio and Macomb, like we're fairly community minded and very much so in our, like, this is our restaurant. On the alcohol side of it, there's a lot of like bourbons and things like that that are strictly for the US. That's something that we don't advertise. It's not up on our shelves anymore, but if somebody asks for it, we're still gonna serve it. There is a menu change coming from our head office in June, and they have indicated that the Kicking Memphis chicken sandwich will have a name change. Brace yourself for this one, because it has a major US city in its name. But we're called Boston Pizza. Right, we all get to. So it'll be interesting to see what our new menu looks like. I grew up in an era where, and I'm sure you guys are exactly the same way, but how many people are going to Boston Pizza for chicken wings? How many people are going to BP's for chicken wings? We're all BP's. And then people say, well, where does the S come from? I don't know. It's just what, me at BP's. Like, I don't know where the S came from, but it's because it's the apostrophe S or the entitlement that that's my place to go, right? Yeah.
Good, any other questions or comments?
Just one.
Which one? One of the questions.
Yeah.
You did mention that, so in terms of your rise to management,
Mhm.
you started off as a third manager.
So I actually started in Lacombe. I started as a server. And what happened was I left I had already managed in Pinocchio, but that wasn't really on my resume. And then I left a management position that I didn't really love. So when I started in Lacombe, they said, why didn't you apply to be a manager? And I said, no, I just want to be a server. Like, I just want to come in, make my tips and leave. And then after a month, there was like, it was the month where the business had just opened. So there's always some growing pains and team challenges. And there was a management position that opened up. So the owner of the store, he asked if I would consider management. And at that stage, I was like, okay. And the ultimate reason why was because I wanted to buy a house. And when you look at your mortgage documents, no lending is going to offer a server who makes $5.25 an hour a mortgage. The difference was I wasn't making $5 an hour. I was making a lot more than that. But when it's not on paper, they don't consider it guaranteed income. So I moved into the management world so that I could secure a mortgage. And that's how it started. And then I just basically worked up. So as a third manager, I oversee kind of more of the lounge operations. It has a smaller team, a smaller floor space. Then I moved into the restaurant side and the restaurant management. And then I moved into the assistant general manager position underneath the general manager at the time was the owner of the restaurant or is the owner of the restaurant, Jason. And then when I came back from maternity leave, I actually said, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to go to the bank. And I thought, I'm going to go into the banking world because bankers work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. I'm going to have my weekends and my evenings off, and I have a young family. Jason asked if I would come back as the GM, and I said, you know what, I have to talk about it with my family because I had 2 small children under the age of 2 at that stage. And the GM of the restaurant can work upwards of insane hours. Like I've done 80-hour weeks, I've done 40-hour weeks, I've done 60-hour weeks, I've done, you know, everything in between. And so I had a great dynamic of support around me that I was like, okay, game on, challenge accepted. And I fell in love with the restaurant industry long before that. So you really didn't have to twist my arm very hard to get into it because I like people and I like to talk and I like the scenic group of the team. And so it was hard work. It was perseverance that got me through. It was knowledge-based, and it was probably ultimately my gift of gab and if you ask, my answer is always yes, and I'll figure out how to do it. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Yeah.
because my follow-up question was going to be, would you say you're a born leader or you actually learned your leadership skills? But I think you...
I am very much a born leader, and my mother will tell you the exact same thing, but I have fine-tuned my leadership skills to be able to collectively do a larger group. So I would say it's a combination of both. Yeah, I have leadership skills and definitely learned those traits over the years.
So with that, Natalie,
Yeah,
thank you very much on behalf of the School of Business.
absolutely. Yes, thank you very much.
Small business.
I will come just to see smiling
Okay,
faces.
thank you for coming
Yes, absolutely.
for coming out. So, yeah. Have a great evening and see you at the next representative.
Yes, and thank you again for having pizza for supper. I do appreciate it.